So I want to talk to you today about safe communities. And what do we mean by a community? A community is any group of people, a city, a county, a region, a nation, that share common interests and live together or have common economic goals. Before we talk about technology, I think it's important to understand what are the tenets of communities that have become safe and become smart. I think first and foremost, leadership and policy is a primary necessity. If you don't have the courage to move forward, to be change agents, and to make policy changes that supports the use of technology today based on what it's capable of, then you're really not taking advantage of your investments. Smart communities are transparent. Not with everything, but they engage their stakeholders. The stakeholders understand what the government is doing and have opportunities to give their opinions on relevant matters. Data-driven decisions. Data-driven decisions require that you have access to all of your data assets, that you can make good decisions from that data, and that you can share that decision, that information with your stakeholders. Real-time situational awareness. The capability to understand what's going on at any given time through your technology and your GIS platform. Connected and collaborative. You have the ability to connect anywhere, anytime, and you are collaborative with your adjoining agencies and your stakeholders. What does it take? So it takes focus. It takes people. It takes process. And it takes technology, in that order. Forward-leaning people with the ability to communicate, initiate, and manage change. Process, a roadmap, being able to put actions into place that move things forward. Leveraging your GIS investments. GIS is an integration platform. It is the tool that will enable you to access all of your data assets, deliver those, analyze those. Leveraging GIS technology for a smarter community. How is this possible? Well, traditional GIS, and you've heard this before, but traditional GIS, desktop, enterprise, and the internet, where publishing data through a GIS map, kind of basically a one-way street. Today, because of Web GIS and Smart GIS, we are able to leverage all of these investments in a way that enables us to build applications that are easy to use and shareable on any device. Again, what we have is the ability to take all of the data assets that you have, bring those into a web map, a smart web map, a map that has rules, that is automatically updated when data changes. The ability to deliver that data in applications that are configured to support whatever your mission might be. Safe and resilient communities are smart communities. These are challenges that we find that nations, communities share in many cases. Epidemics, environmental or technological disasters, major events where you have people together, civil unrest, managing crime, intentional attacks, protecting infrastructure, and in some cases managing borders. What I'd like to talk to you today about: special event management with some use cases and some examples, counterterrorism and what we see developing in the way of GIS applications for counterterrorism, and how GIS is being used today for emergency management. Boston Marathon. Boston Marathon in 2013 had a terrible event. And if you look at the map on the right, that paper map is generally what was being used for a common operating picture amongst the agencies that cooperated. I like the coffee stain in the upper right-hand corner. During the investigation, a lot of pictures were taken, and there was a great urgency to capture the perpetrators. So the photos that had geotags on them were brought together. They were integrated into GIS to look at directions and tracking, and they were instrumental in helping find the perpetrators. This got the attention of the managers of the Boston Marathon. And shortly thereafter, we were able to help them create a common operating picture using Web GIS that connected emergency management, law enforcement, and field operations. Each had a version of that common operating picture. They were also able to integrate the data that they wanted and share it or not, but they had a common base map and common data feeds. And I don't know if I can get that video to run. Can you, in the back, can you click on that video? Can't do it? Okay. Well, if this worked, sorry, you would see that the race tracked the runners. They tracked the runners by RFID tags. You could see where the lead runner was, where the mass was, and where the trail runner was. All types of security, resources, supplies, logistics, EMS units were able to follow and move. Continuous common operating picture providing real-time status on exactly what was happening with the event. There we go. So you get the idea. Let's talk a little bit about fusion centers. In the US, fusion centers have been put together. As a result of the attacks of 9/11, the thing that was discovered was that lots of information and data was in different places, and if it was brought together, a picture would have been painted. So fusion centers, 72 of them approximately, have been stood up in the United States. Their role is to gather information, lots of information, evaluate it, analyze it, and then disseminate it when there's actionable intelligence. This is an example of one of those fusion centers in Florida. And you can see the amount of information and data that they intake. 12 million reports a year. All different types of information coming in, from phone calls to suspicious activity reports, field interviews. They have the responsibility to act on that quickly. The only common element to be able to organize the data is geography. Being able to bring it together, see patterns, and then focus on the analytics that indicate a threat. So the role is to analyze the data, put it into a situational awareness environment where you can understand it, and then disseminate it for quick action to prevent terrorist acts. I think the quote below from one of the directors who wanted to remain anonymous is that GIS is the most operationally relevant platform for fusion centers. In addition to providing the fusion center with the capability to integrate, they now are driving analytics that operations people can drive right from the interface, whether it's bomb blast standoff, whether it's cell phone tracking, or other requirements. It can be done quickly and easily from the interface to support fusion centers. Last week, there was an attack in New York City. One of the things that helped officials find the perpetrator was a citizen report after emergency alerts were put out to targeted geographic areas. Video cameras were then viewed. Mapping was analyzing their tracks, and they were able to catch the perpetrator in short order. That was done in New York City. New York City is one of the best real-time crime centers in the US. Their goal is to leverage GIS even further And this is the architecture that they're moving towards, where they can do even more with GIS and do it very quickly. Emergency management. Kind of the use case that I think really tells a story. We had an earthquake in Napa, and it did moderate damage. And if you see in the lower left, lots of people were concerned because that's critical infrastructure. That's good wine that was starting to break apart. So there was a great deal of urgency to correct this problem. The interesting thing was at Esri, we automatically take the shake map that USGS produces, we bring it into a web map, and then we enrich it with population data, infrastructure data. So this is something we routinely do, and then we provide to the agencies. We also enrich it with with social media. So we get an idea of what could be affected, and then through social media, within minutes, we start to see what really is affected. Much to our surprise, the California Office of Emergency Services, a very large emergency management operation, was using this as their authoritative common operating picture. The Red Cross was doing the same. And the city of Napa, where the earthquake occurred, was doing the same. So we called and offered some assistance. We sent a couple people up to Napa. We put together a quick damage assessment app on Collector, provided a little bit of training, and real-time damage assessment was coming in quickly. The state of California had never seen that kind of speed to determine the emergency need for recovery. I'd like to show you, I think this is where the video is. Can you fire the video up?
My name is Dan Bout, and I serve as the Assistant Director for Response at the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. Cal OES is responsible for all disasters that occur in California that exceed the locals' abilities to respond to them. Far and away, the biggest challenge we have as it relates to data in an incident is synthesizing data into information that's useful. So there's a huge potential for miscommunication. And as you get more and more data feeds, that becomes a more and more salient issue.
Here is the latest on the breaking news we're following out of Northern California. A strong earthquake rocked
Parts of Napa got hit hard, hammered by this quake early this morning. One example.
The Napa earthquake truly showed us the power of visualizing information. The ability that we had at that time to create flat maps in a not so speedy way kind of showed a gap that we had in our ability to really visualize the information and get it out in a fast manner.
You know, the people on the ground, they need the tools so that problems can be solved during activation, so resources can be deployed timely and effectively.
So during the Napa earthquake, the decision was made to bring Esri in to kind of show us what is possible, you know, what capabilities they have.
That was actually, I think, probably one of those key use cases for moving to a digital map. The ability to start seeing water leaks in real time and like, okay, when did that happen? 3 minutes ago. That is something that you couldn't do with a paper map.
We went from, at best, 5% of online products to 95%. And that actually happened in about, say, 6 or 9 months of the Napa earthquake.
Now you have all the current data that's available, and it may change as you're looking at it, and it's real time. You're looking at what's happening now, not what happened 12 hours ago.
What they showed us that day during Napa earthquake was a story map. It's interactive. It allows us to take a look at the shake map, take a look at the shelters, take a look at whatever information that we're discussing. This allows us to be able to really give the decision makers what they need.
The technology is there, and we know that it's available, and we leverage to the best of our abilities. It's my dream come true. I mean, it's great.
During the fires was the first time we really used the dashboards this year, and we were able to provide a visual of acreage burn, current damage assessments. The dashboard provides that snapshot. It saves time. You know, instead of somebody stopping in the middle of an operation to brief someone, they can just walk in, look at the wall, and see exactly what they want to see.
One of the areas that I think we're deliberately going to move to is taking a tool like our GIS mapping capability and using that as a mitigation tool.
Where I see us going is to get hooked up to every single county statewide. So when an event happens, we flip the switch on and absorb their data. And then I can just visualize.
GIS changed the way we do business. We now have the go-to products. We know that this is what we need to do as a requirement. So that would be part of our common operational picture.
The bottom line in emergency management is we are going to be successful. There's not a lot of trying involved. You have to make it work because it's people's lives, it's families, it's their property. I mean, it's the things that are most core to our identity and to who we see ourselves as a nation. And so, we are going to be successful, period.
So I think that that's a really good example of a department within the state that's driving the state of California to be a smart community, a smart state. And what happens is we begin to pull together information and data. We leverage that. It creates new relationships. It creates new decisions that are data-driven as opposed to experience and emotionally driven decisions. So the city of Los Angeles is also one that's becoming a smart community. And a smart community can start within a department. It can start as a total strategy. Right now, LA is looking at an entire departmental conversion into a smart community, and they're making great progress. And the other component of this is they now see the external side, or community GIS, as a critical element to become a smart community. So, getting started. We see common patterns wherever we go, and we help communities that have a disaster or an emergency. And typically there's three basic fundamental capabilities that people need. They need that dynamic situational awareness, they need mobile connectivity, and they need to be able to brief with that information to support really good decisions. I thank you for the opportunity to be here today and to share with you some of the use cases of communities that are moving towards smart and safe. I'll be here this week. If anybody wants to talk, I'd be glad to share connections that I have with you or any way that I can help. So thank you very much.